Believe the 70s were nothing but harvest gold appliances and shag carpeting? Reconsider that assumption. Those household kitchens produced some of the most imaginative, cost-effective, and genuinely delicious ground beef preparations in America's culinary chronicle. These are authentic recipes prepared for actual families nationwide during an epoch of financial instability, fuel crises, and grocery costs that kept climbing. Let's uncover 25 ground beef preparations from the 70s that sustained households, delighted palates, and earned repeat requests even when circumstances were challenging. Begin with hamburger gravy ladled over mashed potatoes. This Depression-era survivor found renewed purpose in the 70s, when beef costs surged 30% amid the early recession. Blue-collar households spanning Ohio to Oregon extended 1 pound of ground beef to nourish 6 people, with hamburger gravy serving as their hidden advantage. The meat went into a cast-iron skillet initially, then a roux got constructed directly in those beef drippings. Flour stirred continuously until achieving golden color. Milk followed, converting everything into thick, peppery gravy speckled with meat. Spooned over a mound of buttery mashed potatoes, this meal settled in your stomach like warmth embodied. It signified more than nourishment. It proved Mom could deliver supper even when Dad's wages fell short. That gravy penetrated those potatoes, generating pockets of savory depth that erased any consciousness of consuming budget food. Modern, trendy comfort cuisine aspires to possess this kind of genuine character. If you're appreciating this expedition through America's vanished ground beef classics, smash that subscribe button and activate the notification bell so our next culinary excavation doesn't escape your attention. We've got decades of forgotten foods awaiting rediscovery. Porcupine meatballs shouldn't mislead you with their name. No porcupines suffered in 70s home cooking. These meatballs earned their peculiar designation from white rice blended into ground beef that protruded during cooking, resembling miniature quills. A fixture at church potlucks and PTA gatherings throughout Middle America, porcupine meatballs functioned as the recipe unifying communities. Ground beef got combined with raw rice, chopped onion, and a beaten egg, then rolled into golf ball-sized spheres. The transformation occurred when these nestled into robust tomato sauce prepared from Campbell's condensed soup. Fresh tomatoes remained unused when canned versions cost just 29 cents. During their stovetop simmer, the rice absorbed the tomatoey broth, expanding and poking through the meat. What resulted were tender meatballs with a distinctive consistency positioned somewhere between a stuffed pepper and meatloaf. They symbolized American resourcefulness, grabbing 2 economical ingredients and fashioning something worthy of Sunday supper. Tater tot casserole represented 70s convenience culture achieving its glorious apex. This preparation, affectionately termed hot dish throughout Minnesota, merged 3 components Americans couldn't resist: ground beef, cream of mushroom soup, and those golden frozen potato cylinders. Invented by Ida in 1953, tater tots ascended to casserole supremacy by the 70s. Assembly couldn't have been more straightforward. Brown beef with onions, layer it in a 9 by 13 pan, cover it with condensed soup poured directly from the can, then arrange frozen tots across the surface in geometric patterns. 40 minutes at 350 degrees converted this into a bubbling triumph with crispy crowned tots and creamy beefy filling beneath. That sound of your fork penetrating the crunchy potato shell into the savory core became a generation's dinner announcement. It materialized at every church basement gathering, every memorial reception, every community assembly. Sophisticated? Absolutely not. Delicious? Without question. This casserole epitomized American practicality. Why complicate supper when processed excellence was this accessible? Old-school goulash, termed American chop suey by some, had every Midwestern grandmother defending her particular interpretation of this skillet creation, though the designation would horrify Hungarian chefs. This was American chop suey, the single-pot miracle rescuing weeknight suppers when Mom worked beyond home. Born in school lunchrooms during post-war years, it surged in home kitchens amid the financially stressed 70s. Ground beef and diced onions got browned until everything achieved caramelization. Then elbow macaroni, canned tomatoes, and whatever vegetables lurked in the crisper joined. Everything merged in one skillet, the pasta drinking up those tomatoey beefy liquids until it turned tender and flavor-saturated. Its appeal resided in adaptability. Green peppers when available, corn when not, perhaps shredded cheese on top if payday had arrived. It simmered away on the burner, saturating the house with that recognizable savory scent signaling supper's approach. This wasn't refined cuisine. This was survival cookery, mysteriously tasting like family. Beef and cabbage skillet emerged during mid-70s when household food budgets contracted sharply. Cabbage transformed into American kitchen's overlooked champion. At 15 cents per pound, this modest vegetable could expand half a pound of ground beef into sustenance for 5. Irish and German immigrants had delivered cabbage customs to America long before, but the 70s downturn pushed it across all ethnic boundaries. You'd initiate by browning ground beef with onions in your reliable electric skillet, that avocado-toned wedding present earning its keep daily. After the meat released its fat, thick cabbage wedges entered, hissing and softening in the beef renderings, a splash of Worcestershire sauce, salt and pepper, maybe canned tomatoes if circumstances permitted. The cabbage reduced into sweet, silky ribbons capturing every trace of meaty essence, converting $1.50 of vegetables into something tasting abundant and fulfilling. It reached the table piping hot, frequently accompanied by buttered white bread for sopping up liquids. Today's nutritionists would label this a one-pan marvel. Back then, it simply meant managing. Beef and macaroni skillet existed before Hamburger Helper achieved household recognition in 1971. Home cooks were already uniting ground beef with macaroni in cast-iron skillets nationwide. This formula was the genuine helper, extending meat with pasta and whatever sauce improvisation allowed. The 70s iteration became a weeknight anchor because everything transpired in one pan. Reduced cleanup translated to increased time for second jobs or community college evening classes. The beef got sizzling first, crumbled with a wooden spoon bearing years of scars. Garlic powder followed. Fresh garlic remained foreign in most American suburbs. Then arrived elbow macaroni, beef broth or bouillon cubes dissolved in water, and a liberal splash of ketchup or tomato sauce. The sorcery involved letting everything simmer united, the pasta cooking directly in that beefy bath, absorbing every flavor particle. When the macaroni achieved tenderness, a handful of shredded cheddar got stirred in, melting into stringy, gooey deposits throughout. It was straightforward, rapid, and satisfied appetites without draining funds. That constituted the 70s kitchen covenant, fulfilled in 30 minutes. Shipwreck casserole secured its position on 70s tables through sheer audacity. With a designation lifted from a church cookbook, someone surveyed ground beef, crushed potato chips, and condensed soup and concluded, "Let's bake these together." The outcome proved divisive yet unmistakably beloved at gatherings from Texas to Michigan. The construction was elementary yet precise. Brown ground beef combined with cream of mushroom or cream of chicken soup established the base. This got layered in a casserole dish. Then arrived the contentious element, an entire bag of pulverized potato chips mixed throughout and heaped on top. Cheese remained optional yet encouraged, typically the orange variety arriving pre-shredded in bags. Into the oven it traveled, surfacing with those chips mysteriously altered. Surface chips retained crunch, while interior ones converted into salty, starchy pockets, absorbing the creamy sauce. Every mouthful delivered a texture expedition, crispy, creamy, meaty, and ridiculously decadent. Nutritionists received no 70s potluck invitations, and shipwreck casserole exemplified why. It symbolized an epoch when processed foods weren't adversaries. They represented American cooking's thrilling frontier. Meatloaf muffins originated from a 70s epiphany. Traditional meatloaf demanded extensive baking, yet muffin-proportioned servings would cook in fractional time. Hence, meatloaf muffins emerged, ideal for harried families shuttling between soccer practice and Tupperware gatherings. Ground beef got combined with milk-soaked breadcrumbs, eggs, diced onions, and sufficient ketchup to impart slight sweetness. Rather than compressing it into a loaf pan for an hour-long roast, you'd portion it into greased muffin tins, generating individual servings cooking in merely 25 minutes. The brilliance resided in surface area. Each muffin cultivated a caramelized shell completely around. Unlike conventional meatloaf achieving crispness solely on external edges, children embraced them as personal-sized suppers, and mothers valued them for freezability as backup meals. They'd surface from the oven crowned with a ketchup-brown sugar coating, turned sticky and lightly charred. Accompanied by instant mashed potatoes and canned green beans, this represented efficiency dining at peak performance. The 70s accommodated nobody's leisurely pace, and neither did supper. Beef and biscuit ring appeared sufficiently impressive for guests, yet secretly manageable for a Tuesday evening, rendering it perfect for the ambitious 70s housewife. The display was vintage performance art. Ground beef baked within a Pillsbury biscuit ring center, emerging from the oven resembling magazine photography. Ground beef got browned with onions and seasonings, perhaps incorporating corn or green beans for color and vegetables. While that cooled marginally, refrigerated biscuit dough got positioned in a circle on a baking sheet, overlapping slightly to forge a connected ring. The beef blend got deposited into the center, then biscuit edges got folded over the filling, leaving the middle visible. 30 minutes at 375 degrees yielded a golden, flaky ring with savory beef filling peeking through. The biscuits absorbed beef juice, turning tender and tasty. Presenting this at the table created an illusion of hours invested in supper. The reality? 15 minutes of genuine work separated you from the discarded Pillsbury tube in garbage. This embodied 70s hospitality. Impressive outcomes via convenient shortcuts, zero apologies required. Porcupine rice bake transported the meatball idea to the oven for a more passive method. While porcupine meatballs simmered on burners, their relative porcupine rice bake proved perfect for working mothers, increasingly prevalent in 70s America. This casserole demanded assembly time, yet no supervision during cooking. The concept stayed consistent. Raw rice blended directly into ground beef generated those signature quills protruding, yet rather than shaping individual meatballs, the mixture got pressed into a casserole dish, accelerating assembly. The baking liquid proved crucial. Tomato soup diluted with water, or when feeling extravagant, a blend of tomato sauce and beef bouillon. The casserole baked covered for an hour, rice gradually absorbing liquid and expanding, pushing through the meat layer like an edible pincushion. What distinguished this variant was the top. Uncovered for the concluding 15 minutes, it cultivated a marginally crusty, caramelized surface, adding textural diversity. Accompanied by a basic salad and garlic bread, this meal type made you appear completely organized, even while balancing 2 jobs and 3 children. Beef jambalaya bake illustrated 70s. Americans dabbling with exotic regional fare, though strained through a Midwestern lens. This dish resulted when Louisiana's intricate rice preparation encountered suburban casserole culture's convenience. Traditional jambalaya's marathon process got condensed into a 45-minute bake, still capturing Creole essence, even if traditionalists would denounce it as blasphemy. Ground beef got browned with the Holy Trinity: bell peppers, onions, and celery, though numerous recipes recommended dried onion flakes alternatively. Canned tomatoes entered alongside white rice, and here's where the 70s revealed themselves. Rather than stock and meticulous seasoning, most formulas required a Lipton's onion soup mix packet. Everything entered a casserole dish with sufficient water for rice cooking, then baked covered until grains achieved tenderness. The product wasn't genuine New Orleans cookery, yet it was zesty, substantial, and sufficiently divergent from standard rotation to feel daring. It represented American food culture's dual curiosity about regional cuisine and reluctance to relinquish convenience. Accompanied by cornbread, it transported Louisiana essence to kitchens never glimpsing the Mississippi. Hamburger biscuit bake presented another union of ground beef and refrigerated biscuit dough, yet with distinct character from the biscuit ring. This version layered everything into a casserole dish, generating a complete meal where airy biscuits soaked up savory beef liquids from beneath. The 70s cherished this equation. Convenience items elevated through intelligent arrangement. You'd commence with brown ground beef blended with cream of mushroom soup, possibly frozen mixed vegetables for color and virtue. This spread into a 9x13 pan, distributed evenly across the bottom. Then arrived the enjoyable segment, tearing refrigerated biscuits into quarters and positioning them across the summit like a savory cobbler. Certain recipes specified brushing biscuit fragments with melted butter and dusting them with garlic powder, details distinguishing competent cooks from exceptional ones. During baking, biscuits expanded into golden puffs while their undersides absorbed the creamy beef blend below. The contrast proved irresistible. Crispy, buttery crowns with soft, gravy-drenched bottoms. This was comfort food architecture, each component perfectly situated to amplify the others. It demonstrated culinary school wasn't necessary, merely comprehension of how tastes and textures collaborate. Mock prime rib patties showed the 70s mock tendency reaching aspirational heights. Ground beef costumed to feel luxurious during economically constrained times. When authentic prime rib consumed a week's grocery allowance, home cooks devised recipes capturing the spirit minus the expense. These transcended mere hamburgers. They were a mentality. Ground beef got blended with breadcrumbs, Worcestershire sauce, garlic powder, and the classified ingredient, liquid smoke. That bottled smoke essence was a 70s kitchen cornerstone, delivering campfire authenticity to suburban ranges. The beef got molded into substantial patties, seared in a hot skillet until crusty and brown, then completed with a sauce prepared from condensed mushroom soup diluted with red wine or beef broth. The plating mattered. These weren't deposited on buns, but arranged like steaks, perhaps with roasted potatoes and canned asparagus alongside. Slicing into them, they weren't medium rare like genuine prime rib, yet that charred exterior and savory sauce generated sufficient spectacle to feel noteworthy. They materialized at anniversary suppers, birthday festivities, any event meriting something beyond routine cooking. Nobody got deceived, yet that wasn't the objective. These patties symbolized respectability when budgets couldn't accommodate extravagance. Beef and potato hash casserole made breakfast for dinner increasingly fashionable in the economically pressured 70s. This was frontier cooking encountering suburban convenience, ground beef supplanting traditional corned beef hash and frozen hash browns, replacing fresh potatoes. Velocity was the attraction. The complete dish progressed from packaging to oven in under 10 minutes. Brown ground beef got combined with thawed hash browns, cream of celery soup, sour cream, and shredded cheddar cheese. Everything unified in a casserole dish crowned with crushed cornflakes blended with melted butter for crunch. An hour in the oven metamorphosed these humble components into a golden, bubbling mass smelling like Saturday morning and tasting like absolute comfort. The hash browns turned creamy internally with crispy peripheries. The beef contributed heartiness, and that cornflake crown supplied the textural juxtaposition, rendering every bite engaging. Families presented this with fried eggs atop for genuine breakfast-dinner amalgamation, or independently as a one-dish meal. It reflected the 70s dismantling of food conventions. If something tasted wonderful and conserved time, who concerned themselves with designated meal categories? Beef tamale pie possessed nothing worship-related despite its religious-sounding designation and everything architecture-related. This was fundamentally shepherd's pie's American relation, constructed with ground beef rather than lamb, and saturated with corn because Americans incorporated corn into everything during the 70s. The designation derived from its temple-resembling construction, meat and vegetables below, mashed potatoes ascending atop like a dome. You'd brown ground beef with onions, incorporate frozen mixed vegetables or solely corn and peas, then unite everything with beef gravy fashioned from flour, beef bouillon, and drippings. This filling entered a deep pie dish or casserole pan, establishing the foundation. Then arrived the mashed potatoes, leftover or instant, judgment absent, spread thickly across the summit and decorated with fork tines, generating ridges, capturing heat. A butter pad atop facilitated beautiful browning. Emerging from the oven, that potato layer had converted into a golden crust with fluffy interior, safeguarding the bubbling, savory filling beneath. Penetrating that potato sealing into the beefy core proved deeply gratifying. It nourished a 4-person family for under $3, rendering it simultaneously architectural triumph and economic imperative. Hamburger spoon-bread casserole married spoon-bread with ground beef in this improbable yet triumphant 70s combination. Spoon-bread, that southern distinctive somewhere between cornbread and pudding, encountered ground beef. Southern cooks had prepared spoon bread for generations, yet partnering it with hamburger meat constituted pure American casserole innovation. This dish bewildered classifications optimally. Was it a main course with cornbread atop, or cornbread with meat incorporated? The response was affirmative. You'd prepare a cornmeal batter with milk, eggs, butter, and baking powder, generating something pourable rather than solid. Brown ground beef blended with sautéed onions and possibly diced green chilies entered a buttered casserole dish initially. Then the cornmeal batter got poured atop, where it would nestle around the meat and generate an almost soufflé-resembling consistency during baking. The outcome proved magnificent. The spoon bread inflated golden and marginally crusty atop, while underneath, the meat and cornbread dissolved into a spoonable blend that was partially casserole, partially cornbread dressing. Southerners acknowledged their legacy in the spoon bread, while Midwesterners welcomed the casserole arrangement. Homemade sloppy joes existed despite manwich availability in the 70s, enabling can-opening dinner solutions. Yet homemade sloppy joes remained a pride point for cooks refusing complete convenience culture capitulation. This was the formula inherited from older siblings who'd consumed them in school cafeterias, now recreated domestically with increased meat and decreased mystery. The foundation was uncomplicated: Brown ground beef with diced onions and green peppers until everything caramelized jointly, establishing a savory base. Then arrived the sauce. Ketchup as the sweet, tangy foundation. Brown sugar for additional sweetness. Yellow mustard for tang. Worcestershire sauce for complexity, and a vinegar splash cutting through richness. Certain cooks incorporated tomato paste for thickness or hot sauce for intensity. The blend simmered on the burner until it condensed to a sloppy yet not soup-resembling consistency, hence the designation making elementary students snicker. Deposited onto soft hamburger buns immediately commencing disintegration, these sandwiches were intentionally messy. Napkins proved essential, abundant ones, managing the beef blend dripping down hands with every bite. Accompanied by potato chips and pickles, sloppy joes represented weekend lunch excellence. Informal food uniting families around tables without ceremony or pretense. Beef enchilada casserole showed the 70s encountering Mexican food, or minimally a Midwestern rendition of it. This emerged when Americans deconstructed enchiladas, reconstructed them in a casserole dish, and rendered them simpler for Tuesday evening supper. Zero individual rolling necessary, merely layers delivering comparable tastes with effort reduction. You'd initiate by browning ground beef with a taco seasoning packet. Old El Paso and Lori's competed for suburban pantry supremacy. Canned enchilada sauce followed next, sufficiently mild that children wouldn't object. Then the construction. Corn tortillas sliced into strips generated layers alternating with the beef blend, canned refried beans, and shredded cheese. Typically cheddar, since authentic Mexican cheeses remained unavailable in most supermarkets. The casserole baked until bubbling and golden, the tortilla strips softening into something between chips and noodles. Crowned with sour cream, shredded lettuce, chopped tomatoes, and sliced black olives from cans, it appeared impressive and tasted like family taco evening minus the assembly line. This symbolized America's expanding ethnic cuisine interest, strained through convenience culture. Was it genuine Mexican cookery? Absolutely not. Did families cherish it regardless? Unquestionably. It delivered novel flavors to conservative tastes while remaining securely within comfort parameters. Beef and bean burrito bake pursued the enchilada casserole closely as another deconstructed Mexican preparation made Midwest accessible. The 70s embraced burritos conceptually, everything enclosed in one tortilla, yet rolling dozens for family supper felt labor-demanding. This casserole supplied burrito tastes in an arrangement serving 8 from one pan. The filling commenced with ground beef and taco seasoning, America's spice gateway, then incorporated canned pinto or refried beans for protein and volume. The authentic technique involved genuinely rolling these fillings into flour tortillas and positioning them in a casserole dish. Yet the lazier variant, cherished by working mothers, simply layered everything horizontally. Tortillas beneath, beef and bean blend, cheese, additional tortillas, additional filling, crowned with enchilada sauce and a conclusive cheese blanket. The oven metamorphosed this into a lasagna-resembling formation where tortillas softened into pasta-comparable layers. The summit achieved slight crispness, while everything underneath remained tender and saucy. Slicing into it exposed those separate layers, rendering each portion resembling a Tex-Mex cake slice. It materialized at potlucks, church gatherings, and neighborhood assemblies, perpetually vanishing rapidly. This was cultural interchange through casserole vessels, Americans modifying borrowed tastes into recognizable arrangements. Beef-stuffed peppers had existed for generations, yet the 70s variant simplified everything, rendering them attainable for weeknight preparation rather than special events. This formula materialized in every community cookbook from Oregon to Florida, with slight deviations reflecting regional inclinations yet preserving identical fundamental architecture. Bell peppers got halved lengthwise, seeds and membranes extracted, generating edible vessels. These got parboiled briefly so they'd complete cooking synchronously with the filling. The stuffing blend united brown ground beef with cooked rice, typically minute rice for velocity, canned tomato sauce, diced onions, and whatever seasonings your household favored. Italian seasoning packets were fashionable, or garlic powder and oregano from the spice collection. The pepper halves got stuffed abundantly, positioned upright in a baking dish with modest water beneath creating steam. They baked until peppers achieved tenderness and marginal edge charring, the filling bubbling from the summit. The concluding touch was compulsory: shredded mozzarella cheese, melted across the crown during the final 10 minutes. Each pepper transformed into an individual portion, rendering portion regulation automatic. They appeared refined sufficiently for guests, yet practical sufficiently for family supper. Nutritionists appreciated them because vegetables constituted the vessel, rendering this among the healthier 70s alternatives still gratifying meat and potatoes preferences. Sloppy Joe pie emerged when standard Sloppy Joes weren't refined sufficiently for Sunday supper, yet the budget couldn't accommodate genuine roast. Creative cooks invented Sloppy Joe pie, this ingenious preparation grabbing the sandwich filling's recognizable tastes and adorning them with a cornbread crown, rendering everything more distinguished. The foundation commenced like any respectable Sloppy Joe: ground beef browned with onions, then seasoned with ketchup, Worcestershire sauce, and a brown sugar touch for that sweet, tangy essence children couldn't resist. Yet rather than accumulating it on hamburger buns, the blend entered a casserole dish and received cornbread batter topping prepared from a basic box mix or scratch components. During baking, something enchanting transpired. The cornbread ascended and achieved golden coloration while absorbing precisely sufficient beef liquids to remain moist and tasty. The outcome resembled a legitimate supper gracing any table, even when unexpected guests materialized. Accompanied by a basic salad or canned green beans, this preparation could render any household feeling like they dined stylishly, regardless of actual bank account contents. Salisbury steak became a meat-stretching masterwork before frozen TV dinners rendered this preparation a pale shadow of itself. Designated after Dr. James Salisbury, who championed beef's health benefits, this formula became a cornerstone because it rendered 1 pound of ground beef resembling and tasting like costly steaks. The deception resided in the binding. Breadcrumbs, egg, and a milk splash converted ordinary ground beef into individual portions appearing substantial on plates. Hand-molded into oval patties, these got pan-fried until golden brown, then reserved while onions reduced into sweet, caramelized excellence. The gravy got constructed directly in the identical pan, employing the beef drippings and flour, generating a luxurious brown sauce, rendering everything tasting like Sunday supper. Intelligent housewives would prepare surplus patties and freeze them for rapid meals subsequently. The children believed they received steak for supper, and somewhat they did, merely not the variety originating from the butcher's costly sections. This was working-class steak, fashioned with affection and necessity in equivalent proportion. Corn chip beef bake likely originated from a fortunate mishap when someone elected to employ a stale corn chip bag rather than discarding it. What initiated as a desperate action became a household beloved, merging the recognizable taco tastes with a hot casserole's warmth. Ground beef got browned and seasoned with whatever Mexican-influenced spices were obtainable: chili powder, cumin, or occasionally merely a taco seasoning packet if the budget permitted. Canned beans, corn, and diced tomatoes extended the meat and contributed nutrition. The blend entered a casserole dish and received crushed corn chip and whatever cheese could be allocated topping. During baking, the corn chips generated a crunchy crown contrasting magnificently with the tender beef blend beneath. The cheese melted and bubbled, generating an irresistible golden stratum, making everyone forget this preparation originated from pantry remnant utilization. Accompanied by basic lettuce and tomato salad, it felt celebratory, even when celebration opportunities were scarce. It demonstrated that occasionally the finest innovations emerge from managing with available resources. Ketchup-glazed meat patties transformed basic ground beef patties into something exceptional. Ketchup transcended mere condiment status. It was a cooking component capable of rendering dishes tasting like they'd received hours of slow cooking. The mystery resided in generating a glaze caramelizing during preparation, contributing both taste and visual attraction to an otherwise plain preparation. The patties themselves remained uncomplicated. Ground beef blended with breadcrumbs, egg, and fundamental seasonings, then molded into individual portions. Yet the enchantment transpired with the glaze fashioned from ketchup, brown sugar, vinegar, and occasionally a Worcestershire sauce dash. This blend got brushed over patties pre-cooking and again during the cooking procedure, constructing sweet, tangy taste layers. As patties cooked, the glaze caramelized and generated a magnificent mahogany coating, rendering them appearing costly and refined, despite originating from components costing virtually nothing. The taste proved intricate, sweet, tangy, and savory simultaneously. Accompanied by mashed potatoes and green beans, these patties could anchor a meal feeling sufficiently distinguished for Sunday supper while remaining within even the strictest budget. Rag mop casserole earned its designation from the noodle's appearance mixed throughout, resembling strands of an old-fashioned rag mop. This preparation became beloved because it employed broken or leftover pasta, converting what might have been waste into the foundation for a substantial family meal. Ground beef got browned with onions and combined with whatever pasta was obtainable, often broken spaghetti, elbow macaroni, or egg noodles past their prime. Canned tomatoes and tomato sauce established the base, while cream of mushroom soup contributed richness and helped unite everything. The blend was seasoned simply with salt, pepper, and whatever herbs flourished in the kitchen garden. Baked until bubbling and crowned with cheese if the budget permitted, the casserole was filling, flavorful, and gratifying in a manner making everyone forget. It originated from leftovers and scraps. The pasta absorbed the beef and tomato essences while contributing its own substantial texture. Families could consume this for several meals, and it actually improved with time as the flavors melded together. It was resourceful cookery, converting potential waste into something delicious and nourishing. Which forgotten ground beef classic sparked the strongest nostalgia for you? Drop your memories in the comments section. If this expedition through 70s comfort cuisine ignited fond recollections or educated you about something novel, smash that like button and share it with somebody who'd value it. And remember to subscribe for additional vanished food customs from America's culinary heritage.